Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. I am Bilal Ali Hugh. You are watching Islamic Action TV, Guerrilla Minded Productions.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Simon Marciniak and you're watching Islamic Action TV.
Simon, brother, we want to discuss something really provocative, something that's really controversial. It comes up. Sometimes Muslims are accused of this particular institution, although we know it's an institution that's existed before the Quran was revealed, before the Bible. It's just as ancient as humanity, and that is the institution of
slavery.
Okay. What's the first thoughts and reflections that come to mind in this discussion for yourself?
Well, if you look at the word slavery, what it generally evokes in people's minds is a historic phenomenon, something that happened or rather stopped happening at some point in the 19th century. So you go back to, as you touched on, Roman slavery, Greek slavery, and then all the way through the centuries up to the plantations and its eventual abolition in the UK in the early 19th century and the US later in that century. So what the word evokes in people's minds is something that's basically finished now. You know, we've had a century without slavery anymore. But if you look at the way society's evolved, what you still have today are the manifestations of slavery in various illicit and unreported ways. And what I would just want to touch on is some of those aspects that people are probably not aware of and which have certain legal ramifications. So, for example, the legal definition of slavery, there's a convention on this from 1926 which basically says that slavery depends on ownership. So a slave is treated like a good, a chattel. Basically, it's been like since Roman times. It's something you can buy and sell. It's a commodity.
Right.
So not a human being, essentially. But when you start looking at things like the European Convention on Human Rights and other instruments, the condition of slavery is attached also to forced or compulsory labour. So, for example, in Article 4 of the European Convention on Human Rights, there's a prohibition on slavery and forced and compulsory labour. Now,
sounds like Restart. Or like employment. When
so you
gotta go for this job.
So you get this very sort of vague term. So what does forced and compulsory behaviour mean? And the way that the concept has evolved covers basically situations today where, for example, you might be somebody trafficked from West Africa, Eastern Europe, the Far East, brought to this country. You've had your passport taken away by this household who keeps
your so-called employers.
So-called employers, but they don't employ you.
They're not paying you.
They don't pay you. They may pay you a pittance like £10 a week. They make you work 24 hours a day. You sleep on the floor of the.
So it's a totally abusive relationship.
So it's a totally abusive relationship. You're blackmailed if you go to the police, I'll report you to the immigration authorities. So the blame it's a blame culture that's actually thrown back onto the employee. To keep them in this state of subservience. And you do get the odd reported case, and the details are quite shocking when they come out. If you follow the news, there's been people who've been in this.
Wasn't there a story in Lambeth where somebody was in that situation for something like 20 years or something of that nature, and it seeped out, but it hit the mainstream.
Exactly, and there's and they're so scared of reporting it because of the ramifications. They're kept in this state for many, many years. Thinking, well, there's no way out of it. This is the best I can hope for. So there's no point in reporting it. So that is a very modern manifestation of slavery, and it depends basically on a poor immigration system. So, you've had these stories recently of immigrants who've been found in the back of a truck in the middle of Austria. And then numbers of Syrians dead. Now, undoubtedly, if they'd have made their way to the UK, a lot of them would have ended up in this black economy where they were abused in a similar way.
I just wanted to jump in there because you make an interesting point, a very fascinating point, very relevant point, that you could say that say Britain, our mentality, our psychology, our perceptions of slavery is very much influenced by Hollywood. So we have films that have come out in the past, whether it's Roots or whatever, but it's it's restricted our concept of slavery to the point of a plantocracy, the South in America or the Caribbean, for example. But it's important to realize that, you know, slavery exists in different forms and fashions, and that it existed before those plantations existed, and it has continued to exist.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things is that obviously the Western countries, Britain, Europe, United States, they built a whole host of wealth. The economic infrastructure, the whole Barclays Bank and Lloyds and all these banks, their primary finance came out of the institution of slavery.
Absolutely.
But that doesn't mean that it finishes there, because you mentioned the type of slavery that's going on in Britain, but there is also, for example, you mentioned the thing about forced labor in America. There's a lot of academics, African American academics, that are coming out now and arguing that the prison industrial complex, the concept of having people building private prisons, for-profit prisons, meaning that once they build that prison, then they need to fill that prison with people. So what you do is you criminalize a section of the society, and then they become overrepresented in the prison system, and then they're put into forced labor. So is that a form of 21st century, in the bastion of democracy, the United States of America? It's a question mark we have that we rightfully need to explore. Is that a form of modern day slavery, forced labor?
Yeah, I certainly think it would come under that definition. I mean, speaking from the UK point of view, I mean, I think the problem is when something gets legalised, when something gets passed into law, people don't think of it as slavery anymore. People just think of it as, oh, that's, you know, it's another form of work opportunity, if you like. You know, because as I say, it's a grey area between like sort of, you know, the job seeker apprenticeship.
Yeah.
If you're on a benefit,
if you don't sign on, we'll cut your benefits.
Yeah, we'll make you work for a week for this particular company just to get the experience for nothing. So there is a very sort of grey area, and I think there is ripe for exploitation. The other important aspect of this, which I need to touch on, is to do with domestic visas, because what the government did in 2012 was to bring in a law whereby, for example, you're a Saudi or Qatari sheikh who wants to come over to work to do business in the UK, but you want to bring over your private retinue with you, your housekeeper, your
housekeeper in
your
brackets,
maid,
right? Housekeeper in brackets.
your maid, your manservant, whoever it is.
Yeah.
But they don't have a work permit, so they need to apply for this particular
paperwork, yeah.
To mean they can come illegally with their employer to the UK. Now the problem with this legislation is that it binds that particular person to that employer. So they only have their visa for so long as they stay with the employer. They don't change jobs. They don't apply for benefits. They don't bring any other member of the family to the UK. They're
totally dependent.
So they have this slave dependency on their employer for the duration of the time they're here. They have no employment rights, so they can, because it's a domestic arrangement. There's no health and safety, checks and balances. There's no working time, no minimum wage. So these people can be abused in the same way as any slave could have been in the past. So you have this.
They're in a very vulnerable situation. They're very
and they're a very silent minority, because who's going to speak English.
They don't have where's their union rep or their organisation or their fraternity or whatever.
So they're banged up in this prison behind closed doors, and they're forced to endure this these working conditions, which may in some cases, and I know for a fact that people have interviewed them, they're very poor indeed, very abusive, very violent in some situations. So we do see modern manifestations of slavery even today, even in the UK, even in London.
Right. And people watching, they probably would be surprised by that, but as you mentioned, when you start to reflect and take the word, because we can get a kind of mental association, like a neuro-linguistic programming, that we just got an association with the word slavery. We think of Hollywood, we think of roots, we think of plantation, but if you step outside of just what the word, the emotional attachment to the word, and look at what the meaning of the word is, then you will actually...
And the functions performed and what they did.
The ingredients, as opposed to the label on the
It's
bottle.
not just with a chain around your neck tied to a boulder.
There's psychological, political, social devices that put people in that type of situation. You mentioned Qatari, and it made me think about people's misperception about Islam being associated with slavery, because for obvious reasons, people always think about Islam, Arab Islam, because the Quran was reading Arabic. But one of the things that many people have misconceptions about with regard to Islam is that Islam is a slave religion. We know that from reading the early history that Islam came to, obviously the Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, was that vehicle where the Quran came through. The revelation came through this individual, a Arabian or Afrocoid Arab. But nonetheless, people make there's Pan-Africans and different types of people who have this idea that Muslims came into Africa and enslaved Africans. But according to what the Quran says, there is no examples of how to take people to slavery, or it doesn't. The Quran doesn't talk about encouraging this institution. The Quran always talks about human rights for people caught in this institution, or methods of if you committed a sin, you've broken your fast, you want more rewards from God, then free a slave and give the person their liberation. So it's seen as a way of phasing out this ugly institution.
Because Islam arrived in a slave-dominated culture.
Exactly.
As it appeared in Roman times, or is in that period of history where to remove slavery completely.
In one go,
basically pulled the
decimated
floor and then pulled the rug from under the Saudi society as well. The Arabian society. The Arabian society at the time. So the idea was to this slow release.
To be phased out. One more point. I know we're running out of time, but there's one more point I want to make as well. An interesting point is that even in war, because you hear about these things on the news now, that they're taking women into slavery or they're enslaving people with ISIS and all this kind of crazy stuff. But from what many of the ulama say, even at the time of the Prophet, when people were captured, for example, you were an enemy fighter and you would cause damage, that when you were taken into custody, and say, for example, you had a particular skill, that damage, what you done, you would work it off. So he wasn't supposed to be indefinitely a slave, but he was supposed to be like, you did a certain type of damage, you're a blacksmith or something like that. So you're going to work for a period of time so it would equal to atone for those, for the damage that you caused, as opposed to somebody owning your humanity forever and ever. So it's just we got to come back to this. The time is so short, but it's been a pleasure, bro. And until next time on Islamic Action TV, stay safe. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah ta'ala wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah ta'ala wa barakatuh.